Hello Internet, it's me Cattery here once again to talk about Blood and Fury World War 85. And the subject of today's video is the Solo Assistant card deck. This might be quite a lengthy video, but I should show you everything you need to know about the Solo Assistant, how it works, how to use it in your game. I'll try and put some chapter breakdowns below, so if there's parts you want to know about it, you can skip to and fro. Without further ado, let's get on and see what this can do for your play. So just what is the Solo Assistant? With this deck of cards and these three sides of player aids, you will be able to replace a human opponent in your games. This deck gives you guidance on how the opponent should play. Now, it's not a true AI bot. It won't be telling you exactly which hex to move into, it won't be telling you which counters to move, what exact actions to make. It'll give you guidance for how the enemy should behave. And you still have to put a bit of your own thought into it. Now, you can always feel free to override what the Solo Assistant does, because sometimes it will give you guidance which you think is nonsensical. But the fact it's not what you would do is exactly what makes this such a great opponent. It does things that are unpredictable, gives you challenges to face that you wouldn't plan anyway. So compared to two-handed solo, it makes it less like you're playing yourself and more like you are playing someone with a completely different thought process. It achieves this by using a variety of different cards. There are four main different types of cards in the deck, and let's go through them now. Now, the main card that drives the system are what they call the AEO Order Cards. There are 35 basic cards which will be included in the Solo Assistant deck no matter what you do. These tell your units what actions they should be taking at any point. Every time a formation activates, you'll be drawing one of these cards, and you'll be assessing what it shows you. The top half of the card shows the priority orders, and these are split into groups 1, 2 and 3, which generally correlate to the range bands. So the 1 is the point blank range, so when you're less than half your printed range. 2 is effective range, so up to the printed range, and 3 is long range. If you have a unit in line of sight of an enemy within that range, that's the action you start to look at. And you work through these formations in range order. So when a formation activates, the first one you look at will be the one that's closest to your player units. And if they're at point blank range, you'll look at the top row. If they're at effective range, you look at the middle. If they're at long range, you look at the bottom. And you'll go left to right to try and find an action which makes sense. So for example, in this card, at point blank range, the first option is assault if your AP or HE firepower is greater than target HE or AP firepower. So you look at the unit you're closest to. If you are more powerful than them, then you will assault them. If you're less so, then you'll move to the next option, because that one doesn't fetch. The next one is fire. So in that case, you'll just make a normal fire attack. Again, if you're at medium range or long range, there'd be different options. If you don't have line of sight to any units, or if you're looking at someone and you go through the main orders here and nothing seems to work. For example, say I've got quite a weak unit in short range line of sight, and they don't meet the criteria to start the assault, and say it's a ATGM unit and they are currently out of missiles, then they can't do a fire action either. At that point, you'll move on to the battlefield situation, and at this point, you'll abandon focusing on whichever unit you were looking at, and look at any unit in the formation which can meet these possible criteria. So the first, again, you work top to bottom, left to right. So in this case, highest firepower AEO, that's the artificial enemy opponent, closest to a PU, player unit, that has just acted, fire. So if you have a unit that's in line of sight of someone who's got an ops complete mark on them, then you take a shot. You might not be able to, and so you move to the next one. Disrupted AEO, closest to a player unit. If in 0 dB, move towards cover. So if it's somewhere with a 0 defensive bonus, you'll move towards cover, or into the trees or behind a hill or into a city. And each time you draw a card, you'll work through it for each unit, starting with the one closest to your player units and slowly spreading away. But again, if these things don't match, you'll be jumping to the battlefield situation section, and at that point any of the units could possibly activate if they fit those criteria. Now there are a couple of options with these cards. So you can either, every time you activate a formation, you can draw one card and use the same set of orders for every unit in that formation, which is generally the preferred way to play. That means every formation will tend to work in a kind of cohesive manner. Or what I like to do, if I'm playing one of the small scenarios where there's one formation per side each, I'll draw a different card for each unit that activates. That can add a much more randomness to it, but when you've just got one formation on each side, it gives it a lot more. It gives the game a lot more flavour. Now you will also see there's some icons down the side here. The little squares with the arrows, they are your load and unload icons. So if you have to move at any point, these define whether or not you should be loading or unloading passengers. So if you've got passengers on board and you're doing an action with this symbol and you're moving, you should try and unload them, then move, or move, then unload them, or vice versa. The little target symbol we'll come back to later. Now there's not much in the way of charts in this system, not like the lock and load system where there is a stack of player arrays that thick with flowchart upon flowchart. These have got two real charts you'll have to consult on a regular basis, and that's the counteractions and the victory conditions. And they're both on this player aid here. So for the counteractions, that depends whether your AEO opponent is in a defensive posture or offensive posture. This posture is set for the entire game, and the deck is built to a certain posture. And if they're defensive, you look at the first condition and you keep moving sideways until you find something that fits. So first counteractions, AEO moves onto the map. So if you've got someone off board that says to come on, bring them on. AEO within the line of sight of most units, move and fire. So I mean, they're all quite clear what they've got to do, but there can be ambiguity of which actual action you take, or which unit takes that action. But again, that's where you just got to apply a little bit of your own judgment and common sense. Because like I said, this isn't a bot. It won't do all the thinking for you. But when you see execute counteractions or execute victory conditions, this is the one sheet that you will need. And as I said about posture, these are just the basic AEO cards. The AEO can be set up in an offensive or defensive posture. And for those, you add extra cards to the deck. Defensive and offensive posture, you have an extra 12 cards of each. These are called the Silver Star cards. So the defensive one will be more move and fire, more try and get to cover, or might try and protect the victories. And the offensive ones will be more attack, assault, move forwards, move towards the enemy. Showing the different types of combat, the different types of combat mindset. And they have the Silver Star cards, which is a standard energy level, or intensity, I think is the word they use. And you also have the 6 Gold Star cards you can add to it. And these are just pushing even more extreme, even more defensive, or even more offensive to add a bit more variety into the possibilities. When it comes to building a deck, for the published scenarios, they give you exact guidance on what deck you should build for each side that you could be playing. For DIY, you've just got to think, I've made this battle generator scenario. In this case, I think the Soviets are being defensive, so I'm going to give them the Silver Star cards. And I think they're going to be really defensive, so let's add the Gold Star cards on top so they're really holding on to this victory location. But these are the main cards that drive the entire system, and the different defensive and offensive ones adding to the core deck really do change how the enemy acts when they draw them. The next cards are the Reload Cards. Generally in a deck you'll have a couple of these picked randomly, and they all have the same purpose or the same goal, and that is to force you to shuffle the deck and remix in old orders back in. Now, what they have made a strange design choice with this, which I don't fully understand. So these are the defensive reload cards. So this one, reload if AEO is in defensive posture. The thing is, if this is in your deck and you're in offensive posture, it's a pointless card to have there. When you activate a formation, you'll draw it to try and make an action. No action will happen. You'll put it in the discard pile and you'll draw another card straight away. It's almost like you've got no card there at all. So I don't know why they've split between which posture you're in. It's a strange design decision to me, and if I ever get the chance to talk to the guys who put this together, I'd really be interested in the logic behind it. Now you do have like a couple as well. So you've got, this will cause the deck to reload, so you'll reshuffle everything, and there are two that for each defensive and offensive, which is not just reloading and shuffling the deck, but also removing these cards from play, so there's less chance of reloading again. Like I said, most times you'll be randomly picking two of these to form your AEO deck, and depending on the formation you're in, half of them are going to be useless. So I don't understand why they've made that split, but generally reloading the deck is good because it brings everything back in. The next cards are the action event cards. There's only 12 of these in total, and generally if a scenario asks you to put one in, it'll be only one or two. You've got some here which generally help NATO forces, and ones that are more likely to help Pact forces. And these can do anything from, for the Pact ones, it's generally giving them additional artillery strikes, sometimes for immediate use, sometimes to add to their pool of possible OBA. And for the NATO ones, it's more about effects to the board. So you've got minefields being placed, improved positions, digging in, and also bringing additional West German leaders in. So it does have a bit of variety, and when you draw one, you never know exactly what's going to happen, and it can change the tide of the battle, especially when the Warsaw Pact suddenly drops some OBA on you. It can change everything. And the last other card is the Battlefield Event, and these are even crazier. These knock the excitement levels out the park. They can bring in leaders with strange bonuses like immediate OBA attacks. They can bring in chemical strikes. They can bring in close air support, which wasn't initially in the order of battle. And those cards will stay in, so every turn you might be getting Harrier strikes come in. These make it really unpredictable, a bit like the Battlefield Event friction card does when it's in the formation deck. It can really change things quickly, so I like to add these in for fun. The rulebook recommends just rolling 1d6 and adding a random amount in, and I think I'd happily have all 6 in the AEO deck just to keep the excitement levels high. Like I said, deck construction is generally ruled by the scenario as written. If you're doing a battle generator scenario, DIY scenario, you have to come up with your own deck, but the general flow for all of them is add in your core AEO Order Cards, add in a couple of random reload cards, add in, say, the offensive Silver Star cards, if you're being offensive, or defensive if the AEO is supposed to be a bit more defensive, a couple of random Battlefield Event cards, because like I said, they really add to the spice, and the action event cards only if the scenario says they should be in there. And you know what, for this deck, let's put some in there. And these will all get shuffled up, and then this stack of cards will become what you're playing against. and it does have the possibility to be just as random as a human opponent. When it comes to setting up a scenario, if it's an officially published scenario, they won't just tell you how to build the deck, it'll also tell you exactly where to place the opposing forces, be it general areas or specific hexes, or if they're coming onto the board during the turn, which place to come in. There is often a random element, there'll be a roll of dice, 1 to 2 this, 3 to 4 this, 5 to 6 this location. So they will add some variety to it, but it will tell you what to do. And again, with battle generator scenarios, if you're trying to do a DIY scenario against an AEO, you do have to make this up yourself. But making up as you go along is perfectly fine. And when you are setting things up, you may also need the player aid, because this will tell you how to set up passengers. So often you'll have some infantry and a carrier, and they will be grouped together. This will tell you whether they start in the carrier, next to the carrier, adjacent, in the same hex but unloaded. That gives you that guidance. So let's talk about the basic turn flow, because there are a few extra items to point out of how this can fully take the place of a human. So say a formation card for the enemy comes up. The first thing you've got to think about is HQ deployment. So on that formation, the headquarters could be ready to deploy, or it could be on board already associated to one unit. And they do have a handy little table you can just roll here, which will tell you what to do with the HQ, whether you keep it where it is, deploy it to the area where the most formations are in command, deploy it to the one with the highest firepower. There's a few options. The only time I would ignore anything is to keep it where it is. If the HQ for that is off in the holding box, you roll the dice, it says keep it where it is. No, I'd re-roll. You've got to bring it on board. So after all the refresh and the command checks, see who's in that command, you've got the OBA step. And at that point, you draw one card and you look in the priority section, and if anywhere it mentions, like here, off-board or on-board indirect fire, if your opponent has an OBA mission to come in and you see that, that's when you take the shot. So you'll find out who on the board is a legitimate spotter, who they've got line of sight to, and the closest one within line of sight that won't also affect your own unit, you'll just run that OBA mission. You'll get your fire for effect counter out and go through that. If you draw this card and there's no mention of OBA or off-board or on-board indirect fire here, then they're holding on to that until then. They're holding on to that for this formation. They're not going to call anything in just yet. And this will go into the discard pile, and you'll be ready to draw another card for the actual activation. And then, like I said, you'll go through the card. You'll see which units have the closest with line of sight. Work through the card, do what it does. If you've got someone in point blank, you fire. If they're close, if you can't fire for any reason, then you've got LRM, which is low risk move. So, moving into cover, moving slightly away. Or if you've got someone in effective range, you fire at the closest vehicle. Or if you can't fire at a vehicle, if there's any infantry near you, you move towards them. So you run through the card, you see what happens, you see what it recommends, and you try and do the best you can with that. And that's how it plays and plays and plays for a activation. But when you're moving, you will still be drawing from this deck. So as the player takes a move, if I moved someone within line of sight of an AEO opponent who is in good order, not ops complete, in a position to make op fire, then you draw the card. Every time you move from one hex to another hex, you draw a card every time. And that's when you check for these target icons here. And you also cross-reference the range. So for example, with this one, if I was moving at long range, they don't have a target, so they wouldn't op fire. But if I was moving and I was within effective range or point blank range of them, they do have the target icon, so they'd make an op fire roll against me. Might be successful, might not be, that particular unit would be ops complete. Card goes in the discard pile. I might move another hex. So that guy can't opt for anymore, but there's someone at a slightly different range, so you draw again. And again, you look for the little icon. You'll only find that in the priority range. You'll never find that icon down here, because if you're not in line of sight in a range, there's no need for it. And that all tied together creates a really good, albeit unpredictable, opponent. So I'm going to try and show you in practice now how this plays out. So I'm going to put a couple of little formations on the board and show you a couple of activations and how it works with this deck in gameplay. So to try and show you how the cards really work in practice, I've set up a little demo game here, so to speak. Got some British forces here, 4 chieftain tanks with a HQ and a couple of Fox Recon vehicles. This is the Falcon Squadron Royal Tank Regiment. And then over here we've got a couple of these stacks here, which are BTRs carrying infantry with Spandrel ATGM guns, or ATGM missile launchers, their headquarters, and a couple of T-64s. Now in this, the Soviets are going to be the AEO, and their destination is this city here. They want to try and take control of these 3 city hexes, and the British just need to hold them off. It's not going to be any complicated victory conditions. It's just a little battle, just gives you a taste. So I've built the AEO deck. I've got the basic cards, I've got a couple of reloads, a couple of events, and the Silver Star offensive cards. So the Soviets will be on an offensive posture, moving towards the British forces and trying to take that city. To keep it simple, the formation deck is going to be just 1 formation card each for both of the forces and the 2 end ops cards. So we'll cycle and see how it goes out. I was going to get these all shuffled. And shuffle the AEO deck. So let's draw the first formation card. And to begin with, is the British forces moving. Now, generally speaking, I'm quite happy with where the chieftains are. They've all got some pretty good lines of sight to when these forces come round this hill edge. So I don't really want to move them too far. But I do want to move the foxes forward so that their 5 hex recon range will prevent any concealment for the Soviets. So starting with this guy here, we're going to start moving him. So he's going to head over towards behind this part of the map. So the first move, he is within a line of sight of that T-64. So we've got to draw one of the ops cards to see if there's any op fire. And with the range of 12, he's at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So he's at effective range. And at the effective range, there is no op fire marker. So no op fire is taken. It's going to move a little bit further. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 50% of his range of 12 for the armor piercing fire. That means he's now at point blank range. So draw another card. And this time, there's the symbol. At point blank range, the op fire symbol is there. So the T-64 is going to take his shot. With a firepower of 3, he's got 3 dice. And to hit is normally 4, but because it's a point blank, that gets reduced to hit of 3. So he rolled all 3 3s, so he's in real trouble now. With the armour he's got on this fox, it's only a save of 6. 1 roll of 6, and there's no terrain bonuses whatsoever. But he got lucky. So with only 2 hits taken, this unit is disrupted and reduced. And that's the end of his movement. And this T64 is marked as ops complete. Now this fox is going to start moving out. He moves to here, and although there is line of sight, or there is a line there from this T64, is blocked by that city hex there, so it doesn't have a direct line of sight. All the rest of these forces are behind this hill formation, so this force is quite safe. It's going to keep moving. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And he's going to park up there. So his recon field should now cover all of those units with the range of 5. So none of the Soviets get any. So none of the Soviets will get any concealment bonus whatsoever. And then mark him ops complete. I did also forget about marking this guy ops complete, so let's fix that now. So now this chieftain tank is going to take a shot at this T64 here. So it does pass through one obscuring hex, but that's not enough to block line of sight. And a range of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, is within point blank range. So it's 4 dice looking for 2s. And that is all 4 dice scored hits. So this T64 is just in a cultivated field. He doesn't get any bonuses to his defense stat. So he's just got 3 dice looking for 6s to defend. And while he does roll 1 6, taking away 1 hit, the 3 hits taken is enough to wipe him out anyway. So be disrupted, flipped, and removed, and replaced with a nice wreck counter. And this chieftain is now ops complete. Now this chieftain tank is going to take a similar shot here. So again, he's also going to have 4 dice looking for 2s. And of that, he only actually gets 2 hits, which is not great at all. Now the defender here has 3 dice looking for 6, and 1 defensive terrain bonus looking for 5. And none of those saves are successful. So this unit is also now disrupted and reduced. And this unit is marked ops complete. Now there's no real line of sight from here because of the city blocking the way. And although this unit can see this force here in U7, while they're disrupted, they're not much of a threat, so I'd rather save his possible fire for some opposition fire, depending on what happens next. So that's that activation gone, and it'll be on to the next card. Next card, end operations. So another one of those, and it'll be the end of the turn. But the next card drawn is the Soviet Guards Motor Regiment. So let's see what the Soviets are going to do. First of all, we're going to refresh the unit. So that means getting rid of this ops complete marker. Now we're going to, in the command bit, we roll to see what the AEO's HQ unit does of that formation. Now I rolled a 3, and we consult the AEO HQ deployment table, and that 3 is a deploy it such that the maximum number of A units of its formation are in command. And where it is now, everything is within its command range of 4 hexes. So it's a perfectly good place to just leave that HQ there. So there's no missile reloading to do, but we will check to see if this is undisrupted. And we're rolling that against a morale of 6. And they make that roll, so the disruption effects go away. So now we have to draw a card to see what actions the AEO is going to take for this activation. We draw this AEO Order Card 10. So we start going from the top to the bottom, working our way down. And first of all is the priority section. So this is for anyone that has line of sight to an enemy. This T64 is in line of sight, in point blank range to several forces. So we do look at the first part here. So we will assault if the AP firepower is greater than target AP firepower. Well, his firepower of 2 is not greater than the chieftain's, so skip that, moving to next. Or the HE firepower is greater than target HE firepower. Again, the firepower of 2 for the high explosive against the 3 for the chieftains. Carry on. And the assault firepower, again, same story. So we just move on to the last option on that command, which is just a plain fire. So he'll be firing straight at that chieftain right in front of him with 2 dice, looking for 3s. Well, he scores 1, and the chieftain has a defense of 3 dice with a save value of 5, plus 1 defensive dice for the city hex he's in. And unfortunately, he didn't roll anywhere near a 5, so he is now disrupted. And this T64 is ops complete. So we go back to the action card, and we keep working our way down. So as no one else here has line of sight to any enemy units, or at least no line of sight in any range, then we move down to the battlefield situation part of the card. So the first one is AEO closest to a target will LRM towards. So that's low risk move, so they'll be moving and trying to stay in cover or try and reach cover if they're out of cover. Plus they have the load unload marking goings, so if there's going to be a chance to unload, that's a chance they will take. So following that, the nearest to a target I take to be this BTI here, and they're going to move down this in the city with a low risk move, but they're only going to use less than half their movement, and they're going to unload this infantry unit with the ATGM into that hex, ready for firing next turn. So again, we've still got some people to activate. We haven't moved yet. We keep working on the cards. So disrupted AEO closest to a unit. We can disregard that because none of the AEO units are disrupted. Next one is AEO closest to a unit fire. Well, we've got no one who's not ops complete close to a unit, so we can't follow that yet. So we look at the execute counteractions sheet. And here's where we use this table here. So we're going to be looking at the offensive posture counteractions, and you move left to right to see which one suits the situation. So condition 1 is AEO moves onto a map. Well, we've got no off-map units, so that doesn't work. AEO within line of sight of the most units. Well, the only ones with line of sight are ops complete, so that doesn't really help. AEO more than point blank range in hexes away from enemy unit, move towards victory order. Again, we've got no one within point blank range because these units tucked up in their BTRs, they only have a tiny little range of 2 on their high explosives. 4, so AEO closest to a player unit that fired. Well, there's no player units that have fired recently that are anywhere near. So condition 5, AEO passes as if all player units in line of sight are ops complete. And that does fit. Everything that's in line of sight of these guys, they're all ops complete. So at that point, the Soviet player will stop taking any more actions. They will pass their turn. Now, this is a bit strange. It's not something a human would do. You'd expect a human to move these BTRs closer to the battle or somewhere. You'd expect some kind of movement or move and fire action from them if I was playing it. But these little unexpected things that the AEO does are what gives it some flavour. So we're going to trust the judgment on the deck and move on to the next activation, which is an end ops card. So with that, it's the end of that turn. I'm going to get rid of all these ops complete markers. And give the formation deck a little shuffle. Now, so far, the Soviets seem to be in a relatively good position. While they've lost one of their T-64s, I do have multiple disrupted units on the front line, and they do have an ATGM now in position, which could end up doing a lot of damage to my vehicles. So we'll just have to play it out and see how it goes. So the first card drawn of this turn, end operations. Nothing happens. Which, in a small deck of this, is going to happen from time to time. And the next one is the Soviet Union. So once again, these guys get to activate before my British forces have any chance. So again, they haven't done anything yet, so there's no counters to remove in the refresh stage. But we will see what happens with this HQ unit. So I've rolled a 6, and 6 on the HQ deployment is move it to its unit with the highest FP, AP or HE. And the highest firepower currently on the unit is this infantry squad with their Spandrel ATGM out. So this headquarters will jump to there. Now they've got the command range of 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4 at that position. Even the furthest away unit is still in command range, so we're not going to be making any out of command rolls. There's no missile reloading to do, there's no disrupted units to check for, there's no OBA to fire, so we'll move on to the next card. So, what are they going to do this time? And we've drawn an event card. So this is an action event which gives the packed unit some kind of bonus. So we've got to roll the dice to see what that bonus is. So they've rolled a 1, and 1 on this card is packed divisional artillery. Add 1 3/4 HE for immediate use. So over here on the OBA track, I'll just add on now that they've got a 3/4 HE strike. And when we get to the next time they activate and their next OBA stage, we'll check to see if that OBA gets fired or not. It may not always get fired, may be sitting on it for turns. If you have loads of OBA, you might be firing it every single time a formation activates. So now we play the action event card, but we've not actually done anything with the formation, so we'll need to draw a new card just to see what actions they're actually going to take. And this is card 35, and standard AEO Order card, and again we move down from top to bottom. So we've got these units that are in this unit that's in short range. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, they're in with a firepower range of 14 for the Spandrel. They're within point blank. So if disrupted, low risk move. They're not disrupted, so we go on to the next bit on it, and they're going to fire. Now this infantry with the Spandrel, they have line of sight, clear line of sight to this chieftain and these 2 disrupted ones. So while I could randomly choose which one they're going to make as their target, I think that because 2 of them are disrupted, it makes sense to me that they would fire for the Good Order chieftain. So that's what roll we're going to make. So they've got 4 firepower, increased by 2 because the headquarters of them. So they've got 6 dice, and they're looking for 3s. Normally 4, but because they're in point blank range, they're looking for 3. So 6 dice looking for 3s is insanely powerful. And with that roll, they have scored 6 hits. Now this chieftain does have 3 dice that are looking for 5s, but because they are in the city, they get 1 defensive dice, and they haven't moved at all this turn, and they're in concealment terrain, so they get concealment dice as well. So we've got 3 dice looking for 5s, and the 2 bonus dice also looking for 5s. And on that roll, they'd scored 1 save. So negate 1 of their hits. Still leaves 5 hits, so this chieftain is disrupted, flipped, gone. Absolutely wiped off the face of the earth. So I put down that wreck there, but because of the amount of hits that have happened, there's a chance of there being a fire in that city. So I'm going to roll another dice now and see the outcome there. And yet a 6 was rolled, and because that 6 was rolled, that wreck counter gets replaced with a fire counter, which blocking lines of sight, possibility of spreading. That could cause a lot more trouble. Now we'll also have to check to see if these guys have used up all their missiles or not. Because it's the green firepower, it's the missile reloading check. With a morale of 6, that's what we'll be checking against, the morale training value. And they rolled too high. So this scoundrel is now in a reloading missile state. And they are ops complete. Now the T-64 here, that's not fired yet. So we go back to the AEO Order card. Again, he's in point blank range and not disrupted, so he'll be firing at one of these two units. Now, because they're both disrupted, there's not a clearer advantage for either fire, so I'm just going to randomly roll and say 1, 2, 3 will go for the Chieftain, 4, 5, 6 will go for the Fox. Rolled a 2, so the Chieftain's going to take that hit. And this T-64 has 2 firepower, looking with a hit of 4, but that'll be decreased to hit of 3 because of the point blank range. So 2 hits from that T-64. Now this Chieftain has 3 dice looking for 5s, and an extra terrain dice for the city, and an extra terrain dice for being concealed. So in total, 5 dice looking for 5s to try and negate those 2 hits. And out of all that roll, only 1 good enough, so it leaves 1 hit. And this disrupted unit is now also reduced. And all the units in this little stack here, now ops complete. So go back to the order card to see what should happen next. Now because we've got no one left with line of sight in a range, we're going to start moving down the card. So disrupted AEO, no one is disrupted. AEO closest to a good order player unit, fire, well there's no one with line of sight, so that's not going to work. So the third one down, AEO closest to ops complete unit that just acted, or victory objective, will move towards. So out of this unit here is the one that's closest to the victory objective. So they're going to take a movement towards it. Because it's just a risky move, it's not a low risk move, and there's no loading unloading icons whatsoever. They're just going to move, they're not going to let the infantry out just yet. Move 1, 2, 3, and at this point then the U7 is going to take an op fire shot at them. As it goes along the hex side of the fire, it doesn't block it. So they've got a range of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So a range of 8 with a range of 14. It means it's not point blank, it's just 4 dice looking for 3s. But they do have the 2 bonus from the headquarters, so that's 6 dice looking for 3s to hit. And with that huge chunk of firepower, there are 5 hits in total. Now there's no defensive bonuses for where they are in the open when moving. They've just got the light armor save of 5, which even if they make it, which they don't, wouldn't have any effect. With 5 hits, you're disrupted, reduced, gone. But we've got to find out what happens to these passengers now. But they rolled a 1, so the passengers are completely survived. They are just ops complete there. I've done that, so now back to the card and we keep going down. So we've tried that, and for this last unit here, we've got the execute victory conditions. And here we consult this chart, and again, just like the counteractions, you start at one place and you move across, and you see the first thing that fits. So condition 1, eligible AEO attempt to eliminate enemy unit in victory objective in line of sight. I mean, they've not got line of sight to anyone, so that doesn't count. So condition 2, AEO vehicle stack closest to victory hex not controlled by AEO moves towards. So there's a victory hex there that's not controlled by the AEO, so they're going to move towards it. And it's not a low risk move, but after the direct route went so badly for them, I think I'm going to make a little judgment call that they're going to take a little stealthy route over the hill and maybe through the trees. So they'd make a move more like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And as they move there, their line of sight is blocked from that chieftain, so they can't take any upfire. But that fox will have a little go. So he's only got a 2 firepower. And range of 4, point blank, 2 firepower, looking for 5s. Nowhere near as powerful as the chieftains, especially by itself, but let's see what happens. And those 2 dice looking for 5. No hits whatsoever, so ops complete with no effect. And this stack here will be ops complete. Now this BTR here, they'd possibly also be following the same victory conditions and trying to move towards the AEO, but I'm going to make the judgment call that because they've got such little firepower and the stacking limits around there, they'd have to go a long way around. I think it makes more sense for them to remain next to those infantry, ready to reload them onto the transport and move the infantry with their weapons when they can. It seems more correct than moving anywhere else. So, end of this card, but I mean, look, there's been loads of action. Missiles flying, fires catching. It's been a good one. So, on to the next formation card. And the next formation card is an end ops card. That's it. We've had our second end of operations, but my British forces haven't gone at all yet. So, I mean, start by clearing up. Get rid of all of these ops complete markers. And the British HQ here is going to move to this end operations card. So this end operations card is going to be out the game until they draw their formation and they can come back in and play a little bit. Now we do have the fire still roaming there. So we've got a roll to see if it continues to burn or burns out. So let's have a little look. So I've rolled between 1 and 4, so that's still going to be burning. And there is a city hex next door, so there's a chance it could spread. And again, just a 4, so it doesn't spread, it just burns away, because that could have been very risky for that little chieftain. So I'll pick up what's left of the formation deck, give it a shuffle for the next new turn. So let's start going again. And the first formation to activate is the Soviet Union. So again, we've got nothing to refresh at all, being the first turn, but we do have to see what the HQ does. And we've rolled a 2. And when you roll a 2, it will go to the place of the maximum number of units in its reach. And where it is around the majority of units with just one stack out there. So I'll say that stays where it is. Now, unlike previous turns, they do have the OBA possibility. So to check for OBA, when you get to the OBA step, you draw a card and you look in the priority things, and if off-board artillery is mentioned anywhere, then it gets taken. And sure enough, on this card, on that effective range line, on-board, off-board or on-board indirect fire. So this HE mission is going to take place. Now the HQ has line of sight to these 2 units and all the way over here to this Good Order Chieftain. So being that Good Order Chieftain is the biggest threat, and he's also adjacent to another unit, so if there is any scatter they could pay off, I think that's the shot that would be taken. So lay down your fire for effect marker. I'm going to roll to see if there's any scatter, and nope, scatter stays on target. So it's a 3-4 HE mission. So that's 3 dice looking for 4s. So out of those 3 dice looking for 4s, there are 2 hits. Because of the nature of OBA, He only gets 1 dice looking for a 5 in defence, but he does have the city defence and also the concealment defence because he's not moved at all yet. So 3 dice, all looking for 5s against those 2 hits. And out of that, there is 1 hit saved, leaving 1 hit, so that unit is disrupted. And the OBA here has been all used up. So although not the most effective shot, it has proved useful. So now on to the proper action phase of the turn. So we'll be drawing a card to see what actions these Soviet forces take. Oh, there is one little step I did miss. Because they've got a command range of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, got to check to see if this BTR is in command or not. Now there's a morale value of 6. And they've rolled an 11. So this last little stack out on the sticks is now out of command and is not going to be usable for this activation. So I'll draw the action card to see what action to take. It's the AEO Reload card. So this says, reload if AEO in offensive posture. Remove this card from the deck when played. So this card, off to the side. All these previously used cards, discarded cards, are now going to be shuffled back into the deck to be used. So of course in this teeny tiny little example, there's not a great deal of cards there, but when you've got multiple formations and you're in a few turns in, that'll really can bring the deck back to life, and depending on what cards are in there, can open up some more opportunities to be revisited, especially in terms of the events, and who knows how many extra OBA missions I could end up getting from that. So the deck's refreshed, and we'll draw the card to see what they do. And we draw 75, one of the offensive silver cards. And as per all the other times, we work down the card from top to bottom. So from the top, fire if player unit disrupted. Well, you've got this unit in point blank range of that chieftain. So I think obviously they're going to take that shot because the player unit is disrupted. So they've got 4 dice, looking for 3s because of the short range. At this point my video seemed to cut out, which I didn't notice at the time, but you've seen enough different formation cards and running through the solo assistant cards to get the general flow of a turn. So let's go back to the top for my final thoughts. So now I've shown you the components that make up the solo assistant and that powers the AEO, the artificial enemy opponent, and I've run you through an example of play, albeit on a small scale. I hope you get a good general idea of just what the system can do for you. Now World at War 85 generally is a really good system to solo without this needed, because of the formation cards activating random formations throughout the course of the game. All you've got to worry about is you pick the formation card, you see what formation you're using, and just make the best moves for that unit. Because you're not thinking, oh, I go, you go, I go, you go. You don't get the chance to outthink yourself because you can't ever really know who's going next or who would be going next. So it keeps it really fresh and it makes it very easy to solo. But what the AEO adds is actions that you personally wouldn't take yourself. And that unpredictability of it, while doesn't necessarily make it a challenging or an easy opponent to play against, it makes it a surprising one, and that is what kind of replicates playing a human. Because when you're playing a human, they'll make moves that you weren't expecting. Sometimes good, sometimes bad, and that's what this system does too. Now, if you've watched this channel at all, you know I spent an awful lot of time with Lock and Load Tactical and their solo assistant with Heroes of the Bitter Harvest, running through that entire random campaign. And I love that system. And this obviously shares a lot of DNA with it. The basic structure is the same, but they've cut away so much of the craft. All the flow charts have stripped back. The cards are simpler. The way that you've got these little symbols here about when you're going to be triggering op fire, just brilliant addition to the system. Now, of course, Lock and Load Tactical is a more zoomed in, intricate system. There are more options for you to take at any one time, so it does need to be a slightly more complicated system in that regard. I think this works just as well, if not better, and definitely smoother. And like I said when I was doing the example of play, when you're actually using it in the game, as long as that video was, I was taking all that time explaining my moves to you and explaining my thought process and how to read the cards. When you're just taking action without explaining it to someone, it can go so much quicker. Overall, I love it. I think it's really well implemented. The fact it's included in the base box is just excellent, and a real smart move from Lock and Load, which they seem to be doing with all of their games coming out now. So, like, First Victories has got a solo assistant in it, I believe. And I think Close Quarters Waterloo is going to have one in the box, if I'm not mistaken. So, they're absolutely catering towards the solo player. But like I said, World War 85, it doesn't need this system. But the fact that you get it is just super handy. Now, this is the system, the one I've been looking at in this video is the specific Blood and Fury solo assistant, which came in the box. There is also the separate solo assistant you can purchase which covers World War 85 games and Nations at War. I haven't used that system, or I don't own it. I imagine it's very similar, whereas this has some specific cards referencing the Soviets, the West Germans, the British forces. I'm sure it's a bit more generic in the solo assistant box set. There's little ways that this is tailored to the units and the scenarios in this game. But yeah, overall, if you're going to be playing solo World War 85, give this system a shot. But of course, because of the way the game is, it's not necessary. But I know that World War 85 is going to be spending much more time on my table in the future. So, what do you think about this? Do you like to play World War 85 solo? Do you just like to draw cards and play, or do you like the solo assistant? Any insight you have, chuck something in the comments, because I love hearing what you guys have to think about these things. So, until next time, happy gaming!